Hey everybody, this is Maitri from SkillPad. I am the co-founder and partner at SkillPad. SkillPad offers talent solutions for early stage startups, and Growth Bites is a venture from SkillPad. We are a learning portal for career professionals, wherein we feature expert speak series. As a part of our expert speak series, today we have Sneha. Sneha, we're really glad to have you today. So tell us a little bit more about what kind of roles you played in HR, your career journey, a brief about, your journey so far to our viewers.
All right. So I started my my corporate stint in the year 2008 with Honeywell Technology Solutions in Bengaluru. Over there, I was for about 4 years, taking on various roles in HR, right from recruitment, org development, training, HR strategy, rewards and recognition, and being a generalist for business units. After which I moved to Navi Mumbai post my wedding. And here I've been with Pinnacle Infra Heights since then in the year 2012. So I've always been passionate about soft skills and public speaking and passionate about teaching as well. So with that passion, I started my academy called the Talking Bee in the year 2017, and it's been 4 years now, and it's doing tremendously well. And I look forward to bridging the gap between capabilities and the way you express it through learning a platform of my academy on teaching soft skills and communication.
Wow, that's really impressive, Sneha. All right, so to begin with, to everyone watching out there, so today's expert session, Sneha is going to uncover a lot of tips and hacks, job search and interview hacks for everyone out there. So to begin with, Sneha, as the global economy reels from the COVID impact, there's no doubt that the job market is going to remain unstable for a while. We all know that. But we're curious to understand, with a lot of companies embracing remote opportunities and the virtual, adopting virtual mode, do you think the job market has become more competitive?
Well, that's a very good question. So, COVID has impacted a lot of industries, be it travel and tourism, hotels, restaurants, manufacturing sector, which has kind of forced a lot of layoffs as well as pay cuts, resulting in an oversupply of candidates. At the same time, COVID has also brought the concept of work from home into the mainstream. So, as a result, both companies as well as job seekers are now able to get a wider geographical area to kind of seek each other out, resulting in star performers getting more opportunities, and especially the ones who are able to adapt to work from home and deliver results more effectively. So an average Joe, on the other hand, is facing a lot of competition, be it filling job vacancies or, for that matter, even retaining his current role. So in short, if you ask me, for high performing employees, there are tremendous opportunities, while for the others, they're going to face some stiff competition.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the opportunities, I think yes, there are a lot more opportunities, but yes, to conclude, it has become more competitive. Yeah, so as we're talking about the job search, so the first leg for anyone in the job search process starts with a resume, right? So, and being a specialist and expert, Sneha, could you share a few tips about how should one draft a resume? What should go into a resume?
That's a very valid question, especially for freshers who are drafting resumes for the first time. So, a resume, what is the purpose of a resume? So, basically, it's like a window for an employer to glance into the past of an employee and experience, skill sets, capabilities, and be able to match that with the given job description. So, in order for your resume to stand out, there are three R's that I would recommend to keep in mind while drafting a good resume. The first R being readability. So, is your resume readable, or is it too cramped with a lot of text? All your achievements should be in bullets. All points should be in bullets. It shouldn't be too elaborate. It should be as precise as possible. Uh, Avoid grammatical and spelling mistakes, and um, use simple fonts. Don't try and use very stylish fonts. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look professional. So use simple fonts. Keep it neat and clean. So basically, the readability part should be nice. The second R is relevance. So is your resume relevant to the job description that is in question? So how can you do that? How can you ensure that your resume is relevant? So do a thorough research about the company and about the job description. If there is limited information available about the job description, look for other job profiles, and then see what are the skill sets that they are looking for, that they are seeking out. And if you have them, do not forget to mention that on your resume. So that's about the relevance part. And the third is realistic. If you have been heading a project team in which you were able to deliver a certain project well ahead of time, how much dollar savings did it do for your company? So if you can mention that, that will be great. So instead of rather saying that I did this ahead of time, I contributed to a cost saving of X amount of rupees or dollars by executing this project well in advance. So if you are able to mention that in that language, that becomes realistic. With realistic, I also would suggest that when you're giving references, ensure that those are accountable and credible references. So for freshers, if you can give references of your professors, while for lateral employees, you can give references of your seniors in your previous organizations.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3 R's, if you can make a note of that: readability, relevance, and realistic. I think that's how you make a good resume.
Great. So moving on, as we're talking about the resume, so I think what happens is the next step is identifying a right platform where you will have to upload your CV, probably a job portal, right? But how to get your CV noticed and not get lost in the pack of the CVs? What are some of the tips you suggest?
Okay. Well, in order for your candidature going forward, it's very important that your CV is noticed.
Yeah.
So there are 3 ways of contending for a job. I call it the CAR way. So C stands for cold call, A stands for application, and R stands for reference. So when I say cold call, what I mean is when applicants drop in their resumes directly to recruiters or to organizations with or without the knowledge of a job posting, it's called cold calling. An application, A for application, it's basically there's a job posting out there, or either on the company website or on job portals or through consultants. You get to know about it and you apply for that job. That's application. And reference is when you route your CV through a reference to the recruiter or to the organization. One of the ways of getting your CV noticed is when you're applying for a job on different job portals, you can maybe subscribe to their premium accounts. So that way the visibility is much higher. Secondly, you can also try and network more and route your CV through employee referrals, maybe, because that's kind of the most successful, proven way of getting your CV noticed. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, as you rightly pointed out, referrals do play a very important role to push your CV from the pack of the, or not get lost in the pack. So as we're talking about the cold outreach methods, Neha, do you think anyone looking out there, looking out for job opportunities should directly knock a recruiter on the LinkedIn? What do you think?
Well, I think whoever's on LinkedIn today knows this, that every day they get so many cold calls, even whether they are in the profession of HR or not. They still get a lot of cold calls saying that if there's a posting job vacancy, please look into our profiles. So see, again, LinkedIn is a fantastic platform for you to find out, to discover recruitment heads, to find out about different job vacancies, and to network with a lot of people. But again, you got to choose whether you want to do a cold call, you want to get through application, or you want to go through referral. And let me tell you that LinkedIn provides all the 3 methods, so you can try all the 3. Of course, the most proven, which is often overlooked, is the referrals. So go out there, make connections and use those to your advantage and get yourself referred through them. That is what I would say. That is,
I think the best way is, as you rightly pointed out, knock a referral first and then you can leverage LinkedIn. Good points, Neha. Of course, the next leg in the job search process is appearing for the interviews, right? Right now, communication and body language plays a very pivotal role because. So, what are some of the tips that you can share with us? How should one be prepared for online interviews?
one is, what are some of the things you need to do before the interview, like just before the call, during the call, and at the time of closing the call. So let's look at pre-call. Certain things that you need to keep in mind. One, what is the mode, what is the app that you're going to be using, which is the browser that you're going to be using for your online interview.
Yeah.
So ensure you test it in advance, the camera, the sound, the mics, all of that. Secondly, ensure that your background is nice, neat and clean. It's not too messy. There is no disturbances. You're trying to get rid of all the noise and disturbances around in your room. Thirdly, your attire. So it's best to be dressed in business attire, and best to be dressed completely in business attire, not pajamas in the bottom and just a business coat on top. Because the moment you dress for a business with a business attire, there's a different level of stance and your poise which is there, which is noticed by the interviewer. So it is best to be dressed completely in business attire, even though your lower part is not going to be seen. Uh, yeah, so your environment, your technology, and your attire are going to be of prime importance before the call. So you ensure that these things are set right, and also don't be late to log in. Try and log in 5 to 10 minutes in advance so that if there are any technical glitches, you still have some buffer time left.
Yeah.
Now, during the call, the first and foremost thing that you got to do is smile, because when you smile, it's going to have an instant rapport with the interviewer, and things are going to be much smoother with a smile. So have an eye contact. Try and look at the camera instead of, looking at the screen, or instead of looking elsewhere. Just look straight at the camera and talk. Another important thing that you need to do is your posture. Don't slouch, neither be too stiff. Just pull your shoulders back and be relaxed, and use hand gestures as much as possible to your advantage. So with these things, I think your aspects of body language are taken care of. And your tone of voice, yes, don't ramble too much. If you don't have much to talk, just end when you're done rather than rambling too many words. And speak at a moderate pace, not too fast, neither too slow. And pause in between, if you're making an important point, pause after that, so that the interviewer is able to grasp it, to absorb it, and to think over it. And at the time of ending the call, what you've got to do is maybe just thank the interviewer, and if there are any key points that you discussed which were of interest to you, you can maybe just summarize that and say thanks for your time. And if you're really looking forward to getting that job, maybe you can say, I'm looking forward to having more conversations with you, or looking forward for our next meeting.
Right.
So that's how you end the call.
Talking about the communication skills, I think what happens is a lot of candidates, although they do prepare well for the technical questions, they might fall flat when they have to face the behavioral questions. So, what are some of the tips, or what is the approach to answer behavioral set of questions?
So an exercise that you got to do before any interview is that think about your achievements, your accomplishments, your awards, any challenges that you faced, and any work that you have volunteered, any initiatives that you have taken above and beyond your professional work. Think about them and use them as stories. Keep it in your pocket and ready to pop out whenever there's a question coming up. So always have a bunch of these stories ready with you. So for this, you use the STAR approach. Now, what's this? So S stands for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for results. So let me explain this with the help of an example. Suppose you're applying for the role of a marketing manager for a chain of hotels for a specific region. And the interviewer asks you, So tell me about a time when you faced a roadblock or a challenge and what did you do? So now let's use a STAR technique. So S, your situation. So talk about your situation. So while I was working in my previous role, I came across a time when the customer ratings suddenly went down on our Google Maps. And it was over a period of 4 to 5 months that the ratings were continuously coming low and our sales were getting impacted significantly. Okay, so now you've described the situation. So now what's the task at hand? So I decided to look into the matter personally and see what are the reasons for customer ratings being so low, and if I can turn around those ratings, if I can do something about it and turn around the sales. So your task you've discussed. Now talk about what is the action plan that you took. So I dedicated a couple of hours every day for about a week, individually going through all those ratings and calling those customers and finding out what were their reasons for dissatisfaction. So at the end of it all, I found out that there were two surprising discoveries. One, that they did not like the taste of the food which was being served, and two, the service, the delivery time was very high. So now it is surprising because our hotel, the restaurant that I was working with, was known for its good food and good service. And this came to me as a surprise. So now you've discussed about, your action. So now what have you done in that? So talk about a little more in the action part. So I went about, spoke to a couple of chefs in the kitchen department, and I tried to ask, so what's going wrong? Why is the food not tasting good? Why is it taking so much time for the service? But they were like saying, no, no, nothing is going wrong, and we're doing our best. But when I digged further, I got to know that there were differences between two of them, and they were not happy with the way they were working. There was some communication, and this was all reflecting on their work. So I tried to counsel them and try to get them on the same path, and now things are better. So you've discussed about the action. Now talk about the results. So with the two chefs getting along well with each other, we've seen an increase in customer ratings significantly. And not just that, our sales have turned around by about 40% in just a span of 2 months. So that's your result. So this is how you use the STAR technique. And if you've noticed, I also spoke about one of the strengths of this candidate. So in which he says during the action that I tried to dig deeper into the problem, which says that he's not just trying to look at the problem superficially, but he's trying to find out the root cause, what is going wrong, where is the problem, and he's trying to figure that and fix that problem. So that is the strength he's talking about. So when you're talking about the STAR technique, also try and include your strength, your ability with which you're able to take that action plan and get results. So with that, your STAR technique model is complete and presentable.
Right. I think, yeah, so that's really an interesting approach. So, moving on, Sneha, as we're talking about the behavioral set of questions, so what does a hiring manager expect when they ask, tell me about yourself? Probably, I think you can cover from a hiring manager perspective, what is a hiring manager expecting when they ask this question?
Okay, frankly, to tell you the truth, this is a lead question, So basically, hiring manager, most interviews do not know where to start. So this
Right.
is the best way they can ask something and break the ice. So it's an ice breaking question. So
Right.
you break the ice and you make the candidate feel comfortable
Yeah.
by letting him speak about himself. And then the hiring manager, then kind of tries to take cues from what the person is speaking and then moves on and leads the interview.
Right.
So that is what it's they have in mind. So for a candidate, I think you should use it to your advantage and talk about things that you want to be probed into.
Yeah. Being on the other side of the table as an interviewer, so could you tell us what exactly goes? What's the thought process that goes into the mind of the interviewer while interviewing?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So if you ask me, there are three things which determine the thought process of an interviewer. One is, what is the background of the interviewer? So is he coming from a technical background, HR background, an admin background, or strategic background? So the background of the interviewer. Second, what is the job description or the job posting that we are talking about. And third is what role is he playing in the interview process.
Right.
So for example, let me give a recent example. So we were hiring for a project manager for a construction firm for on-site. So we were a panel of 3 people who were interviewing this candidate for the role of project manager. So it was me as HR, then I had another project manager of a different site, and we had our CEO. So it's a small firm, so our CEO was also involved in the discussion. So the background that CEO gets is a lot of experience, and he's an old person with a lot of experience. So he has a different mindset. A project manager looks at it from a tactical angle. So let's say if I ask the question, so tell us about some of the challenges at work and how you overcome. So the answer that he'll give will be decoded differently in each of our minds. So our CEO would be looking at it from a strategic angle. Is he able to think about the future? Is he a visionary? What are the steps that he's taking to overcome the challenge? Whereas a project manager on site will look at it from a tactical angle. Is he making use of the software? Is he able to make Gantt charts and use the tools that are required? Then and I was looking from a people angle. So is he able to take people along with him and work? Is he a good leader? Does he know the local language? So these are the kind of things that each one of us is processing in our own heads. That's because of the background that we have and the role that we bring to the table. Job in question. So it differs. So the thought process will differ for every role and the role that you assume. Had the 3 of us been merged into just one person, interviewing this candidate for the project manager role, he would actually be processing it. The interviewer would actually be processing from all the angles, from people angle, from tactical angle, as well as from strategic angle. So the role that you possess determines the thought process. To give you another example, while I was interviewing for a technical job for a fresher, so I asked him about, tell me some of your project experiences. How was it? How did you manage? Did you come across any hurdles? Were you able to finish on time? So when I'm asking these questions, the person was just going on speaking technical stuff, which was kind of French and Latin for me, because I don't come from a technical background. And he very well knew that his technical interview is over and this is the last round with the HR. So as a candidate, you should be aware that with whom are you talking? What is it that they are expecting from you? And tailor your answer, your response accordingly. So the same question, if a technical or a hiring manager is asking, you speak more about technical stuff. But when it is being asked by an HR, you talk more about people angle or about your soft skills. Were you able to do it in time? Did you take initiative? Were you a good team player if you were doing it with a team? So you highlight more of soft skills. So depending on whom you're talking with, you need to tailor your responses accordingly.
So could you just throw us some tips, how should a candidate go about negotiating the salary?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, especially for freshers who are doing this for the first time. So a few points that I would like to share. One, know what is the market value of the job profile. So talk to your friends who are in the job or in the market. Look out for different websites like Glassdoor, there's Payscale. So check out what the market is offering. So that way you will be better equipped that, okay, this is the expectation that you have in your mind, this is where I want to be, somewhere close to. So that's first, know the market value. Second, when you're asked as to what you expect, a lot of times people give a range. I'm expecting somewhere around, let's say 8 to 12 lakhs. So when you give such a range, it kind of shows to the recruiter that you're ready to settle for 8 lakhs when you're also saying that I want 12 lakhs. So instead of giving a range, always give a number, a specific number. And that number should be higher than what you're ready to settle for. So let's say you're expecting somewhere around 9 to 10 lakhs. Yeah. Say that I'm expecting 11 lakhs. Because after negotiation, it will come down to either 9 or 10. So giving a number, one, it helps you, that it talks about your confidence when you give a specific number. It talks about the research that you have done and you deserve that particular amount.
Right.
And you're flexible with a little bit of percentage change here and there. So one, know your market value. Two, give a number and never a range. Three, don't show desperation. Don't be desperate to get the job. The moment you become desperate, your bargaining power kind of reduces. So show as if, even though you don't have any other offers in the market, but have that attitude, so that way you will be able to sell yourself better. Fourth, don't be too pushy. Don't be pushy that, yes, this is the amount I want, this is the salary I want, and I'm not going to go below this. Always try to factor in that maybe there are certain budget constraints that the organization may have. So how do you deal with that? So you can talk when you're negotiating either with the hiring manager or with the recruiter. So let's come to a number with both are comfortable with. So, when you talk let's come to a number with both of us are comfortable with. So it talks about that you're not just thinking about yourself, but you're also thinking about the organization. Maybe the organization really wants you, but does not have a budget that you are putting. So when you show this attitude, it kind of helps things get better in terms of negotiation. And fifth, most important, never ever talk about your personal needs as a factor that you want to rise, a higher salary. So let's say, oh, I just got married and, my rent is so high and I have to get my sister married and, I have so many other things. My mother is ailing and I need a lot of money. Never, never talk about your personal needs. Always talk what is it that you're bringing to the table. And if this is what you're bringing to the table, this is what you deserve. So when you're more professional in the way of your approach, you have a higher chance of getting the salary that you're expecting. So yeah, that's about it.
Right. So I think on the concluding side, I want to understand what are your thoughts on, given the COVID impact on the job market? So what are your thoughts on the jobs and the workforce with more virtual opportunities around?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the future, I think we'll see artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation are going to be at the forefront of everything that we do. The way we walk, the way we talk, the way we do our things. So everything is going to be around that. So a lot of jobs are going to be outdated. There'll be a lot of new emerging jobs in the market. So so that's one of the factors. Second, we'll see a surge in freelancers as well as project-based contracts. So you will see there's a decrease in permanent employees and there'll be an increase in contract-based hiring. So in terms of freelancers and project-based. Third, you will see climate change will have a lot of impact on the way things are done. Your carbon footprint would be very critical. And as a result, you'll also see a hybrid model, which a lot of companies will adopt, wherein employees will be required to work few days from head office, few days from their home, and maybe few days in a co-working space to reduce the carbon footprint, as well as to reduce costs and for greater engagement. So you'll see a lot of hybrid models in the future in terms of your working hours and the place of work.
Right. I think those are really interesting insights. Yeah, I think so. Finally, Sneha, I would want you to give our viewers your, if someone who is out there looking out for a job or planning to start the job search, what are the top 3 things you would suggest to them?
All right. So the first thing that comes to my mind in this uncertain job market is that you got to be constantly upgrading yourself and learning new things. So one, I would say, is reskill, which is learn new skills, and upskill, which is upgrade your existing skills. So basically be a jack of all and master of few. Second, I would say, is hone your soft skills, because soft skills are the only ones which will make you easily adaptable and transferable to different job profiles, because hard skills can be learned and soft skills take a longer time. So hone your soft skills, because tomorrow machines are going to be doing a lot of work that humans do. And what sets you apart is your creativity, your intuitive thinking, and your initiative and your ability to adapt. So hone those skills that will take you forward. And third, I would say, is whenever you're applying for a job, do your research well, do a thorough research of the company, of the job profile, and ensure that you talk about the 3 R's in your resume, which is readability, relevant, and realistic. And when you do that, try and match your skill sets with the job profile. And what employers are looking at are not just your skills, but also your will. So, do you have the required skills, and are you willing to push yourself? Are you willing to take initiative, and are you willing to work in an organization? So, the skill will matrix will come into force. So, do a thorough research, and always remember that employers are looking for skill as well as will. So yeah, to summarize, 1, reskilling and upskilling. 2, hone your soft skills. And 3, do a thorough research and do your homework well. Never go unprepared.
So, well, everyone out there, that's Neha for us today. I think there are a lot of interesting tips she shared with us today. May it be car approach or the star approach, or I think to conclude, so even if you don't have a job right now, or you are someone who just got impacted because of the COVID, so take up some course, reskill, spend more time understanding what you could do, how you can spend the time. I think, so you're definitely going to get or land in a new opportunity soon. So we wish you all the best in the job search process. And Sneha, it's really a pleasure interacting with you. Thanks a lot for all the tips.
Thank you so much, Maitri. It was great talking to you, and I hope our viewers are definitely going to benefit from this conversation. I wish all our viewers all the very best in their candidature.
And if you like the content, please do like, share, and subscribe.